Hey, what's up guys? Joker here. Today we're going to be taking a look at performance again on Battlefield 1, but we're actually going to be using some of the mid-range last-gen cards in the form of the Nvidia GTX 970 and the AMD R9 390. Previously, I've been doing a lot of testing with the current-gen mid-tier cards with the RX 480 and the GTX 1060, so I figured I'd go back and test some of the last-gen cards because there's still a lot of you out there that are running these cards that didn't go out and upgrade, because not everyone upgrades every single generation, and you may be wondering, how can your 970 or 390 handle a modern title like Battlefield 1? So we are going to be testing in DirectX 11, DirectX 12 at 1080p and 1440p with every setting in the game completely cranked up to ultra, and of course I did also disable the memory restriction option in the game so that we wouldn't have any inhibitions there with that. And we are of course using the latest drivers here, which were both very recently released for Nvidia and AMD. So on the Nvidia side, it's 375.57, and for AMD it is 16.10.2. And all of the testing was done in my main system here with the i7 6800K and 32 gigabytes of RAM, so we could eliminate any possibility of a CPU bottleneck, which might be introduced by something like an i5, since this game is rather demanding on the CPU. And we will be benchmarking in the single player, and the reason I did that is just for consistency, so that we can have, equal numbers going head to head here without any variables being introduced like you would in the multiplayer. And to be honest, the numbers that I'm seeing here are pretty darn close to what I was seeing when I did go ahead and hop into multiplayer with the 970 and the R9 390. And I know some of you are probably going to be asking which exactly 390 and 970 am I using here. Well, I'm using what I feel are probably two of the most, sought after of both of those sides of the card. So on the Nvidia side with the 970, I've got the EVGA 970 SSC, which has a very strong overclock out of the box. And then for the R9 390, we're using the Sapphire Nitro card, so definitely one of the premium tier R9 390s that you can get for on the AMD side. So I do feel that this is a fairly even matchup with out-of-the-box performance for AMD and Nvidia, with high-end aftermarket cards that someone might go out there and actually buy. So that's what we'll be taking a look here, heads up today. And we are going to start off with the DX11 performance, and we are going to start at 1080p with the R9 390 here, which pulled in an average of 83 FPS and a minimum of 76. And then on the GTX 970, it was managed to get an 89 FPS average and the minimum at 79. So the 970 is winning out here in DirectX 11. We're now going to bump the resolution up to 1440p. Here again, once the R9 390 is losing again here at 61 FPS average and a minimum of 54, while the GTX 970 is getting the 65 FPS average and a minimum of 59. So both of these cards completely able to handle this game, no question about it, in DirectX 11 at 1080p and 1440p, getting averages above 60 FPS, so that's really good to see here on the last-gen cards with the new drivers getting some good optimization on this game, even in 1440p with these cards that you can pick up out there now probably for under $250, especially if you are looking around in that used market. All right, now we're going to go ahead and switch over to DX12, which was unfortunate to see both sides actually taking some losses in their FPS here. So starting on 1080p once again here with DirectX 12, we got the R9 390 pulling in an average of 80 FPS and a minimum of 72, while the GTX 970 had the average at 69 and a minimum of 64. So when we switch over to DirectX 12, you can see that the AMD R9 390 does beat out the GTX 970 quite significantly, even more so than what the 970 beat the 390 in DX11. But what also is worth noting is that, while that is true, on DX11, both of these cards actually performed better than what their DirectX 12 numbers were. So the DirectX 11 is really the performance I would want to focus on if I was, shopping to get a card for this game specifically, because both of these cards, like I said, are running better in DX11. But we will continue our testing here up at 1440p on DirectX 12. Once again, the R9 390 does beat out the GTX 970 with an average of 60 FPS and a minimum of 53. And then with the GTX 970, we had an average of 53 FPS and a minimum of 48. So once again there, like I said, we could see that the AMD side is winning out here in DirectX 12 on Battlefield 1. It does appear to be a little bit better optimized on their driver side for DX12 performance, but if I'm a gamer, I'm out there, I'm picking up this game, I'm going to be running this game in DirectX 11 personally because it is just better optimized on both sides of the fence here with DX11 performance, and in that arena the 970 did edge it out, but both of these cards more than capable of handling this game over 60 FPS at 1440 and certainly 1080p. So if you're out there already running one of these cards, you have no reason to worry about needing to upgrade. You can run this game maxed out, no questions asked, on the 390 or the GTX 970. And if you are still looking to pick up a card and maybe you're trying to save some money on a used card, either the 390 or the 970, it looks like the 970 is edging it out there. But we are going to be doing more testing coming up in the future here with these two cards on the channel quite a bit, because it's going to be interesting to see how much that continues once we get into more video memory intensive titles, considering that the R9 390 has a true 8 gigabytes of video memory, while the 970 has the 4 gigabytes, which is sort of 3.5 gigabytes really with its fully sped up memory. But that's the topic for another day entirely. But I think this is going to be a fun matchup going forward into the future, and I hope you guys enjoyed the previous gen matchup here. And thank you to Jason Evangello over at AMD for sending out the Sapphire R9 390 so that we can use it in our testing here on the channel. Big thanks to him and AMD over there for supplying that card. And I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comments below on the R9 390 versus the GTX 970, and I'll catch you guys next time. Ta-ra.